All right, so welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation. I'm your host, Paul Barron, and of course, we love to explore both new concepts, but also kind of the late breaking brands of our industry. And one that I've kind of been tracking for several years is a company called Clover Food Labs. I've got with me the CEO, Ayr Muir. Great to have you on the show today, Ayr.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So Clover is, of course, Food Labs is in Boston. You guys have really kind of exploded over the past few years. Ayr, can you kind of explain or give us a little bit of a background of your concept? It is quite a different model than what most fast casual concepts are.
Yeah, I think that starts with our mission. I'm not from the food industry, but at this point I have enough wounds and scars. We've been doing this for about 10 years now, but I started the business because I was learning about food and the environment and starting to understand the choice we make about where we spend our food dollar as one of our more significant environmental actions. So what Clover's focused on is serving people meals without any meat. That's most of the impact we have on the environment. Right now, we have a menu without any meat on the menu, but 9 out of 10 of our customers any given day are not vegetarian. So we're serving people that like eating meat a lot, but they also love eating a Clover.
Yeah. So mission being plant-based, and there is a big movement here in the industry where we're seeing a lot more plant-forward or plant-based concepts that have kind of moved. Have you seen a big shift in the consumer habits and demands over the past couple of years? Obviously, with the number of locations, kind of shows that there seems to be something happening there.
Yeah, it's very different now than it was when we got started even. I think that, and I'm expecting to see a lot of change in the years ahead. I think that generally we have more curiosity and interest in food than we did. So people want to know more about what they're eating and where it comes from. They're curious about that. I don't think it was that long ago when most people did not want to know those things, but transparency is on the rise. People are curious. People ask questions, and I think that there's a lot of technical information that's coming to the general public. I think people are learning that the ideas we had about fat 30 years ago were wrong, and actually were, we were purposely misled about fat. And I think the ideas that we have about protein and what it means to us nutritionally, I think people are starting to learn that those aren't based in fact. And so I think there's some real change in what people understand about how they eat and their willingness to explore things that they may not have been willing to explore in the past.
Yeah. Let's go into crowdsourced menus, because you guys do develop your menus in a very different way. Crowdsourcing, I noticed on your website you've got this program called Food Dev. Tell me a little bit how that all comes together, where guests and customers can actually be part of the menu building process.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with our name. The lab piece of our name is there because we're imagining how food might be in the future. I think our ideas are not that we're going to try and go back to some forgotten era, and recreate the way people ate in the 1800s. But at the same time, we realize, as we look at the past century and the industrialization of food, it's led to some really bad outcomes. I think, number one for me, food doesn't taste as great as it should. But second to that, there are a lot of terrible health outcomes. And I'm a person who grew up in a rural town in New England, and I saw the impacts on my community, even, through my own lifetime. Many small dairies went out of business. Many small farms went out of business, and that's happened again and again in communities throughout the country. So we're looking forward and thinking, how can we make more vibrant local food communities and support that? How can we bring better health outcomes to the food we're eating? And how can we make the food taste a lot bit better? And that's the lab piece. If we think forward on that, what does it look like? What should we be eating? How should we be eating? And we're trying to imagine that, and we're doing it not alone, but we're doing it with the help of our customers. And our menu is developed with the help of our customers and has been from day one. The very first day I opened, I had this idea, but I didn't think it would really work. And so I started with a food truck because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a restaurant that was going to fail. And the very first day with the food truck, we showed up and we had one sandwich. I had 20 to sell. And we tried to interview all the people that bought the sandwich and ask them what they thought and feedback that they would have. And the next day we came with a little bit better version of that sandwich and interviewed people and got feedback again. And that's been our process. We get ideas from hourly staff that are working with us. We get ideas from chefs in town that love Clover. We get ideas from suppliers who bring new ideas to us. And all of those things coalesce at a weekly meeting we call Food Dev. Happens on Tuesday afternoons. We taste a lot of different things. We might taste new oil, from a different supplier. We might taste, the other day we had a kind of maple syrup I'd never had. It's actually not from maple trees, but from beech trees, which was really interesting. And then we'll taste totally new recipes. We had a staff member brought us a sort of a take on a Mexican Baja taco, but made into a sandwich, and it was out of this world. So we taste all different things, and some of them are great, some are not. And then from there, we go forward with testing, and then the things that survive testing, we roll out to the company.
All right. Very cool. All right. So, and I love the idea of, creating a lab environment, especially when you look at your menu that's changing so often. Let's talk about local though, because obviously there's a lot of brands and a lot of concepts in fast casual. They've been trying to go local for quite a while. Do you feel now that you've got kind of this model in place, is this something that can scale for the future there? Obviously you guys are at 10 plus units there in Boston, but could this work in New York for you?
Yeah. I think I have two answers there. One is I think we're intimately familiar with the challenges that are involved with local sourcing. So Clover, if you come to Clover in September or August, 90 cents out of every dollar we spend on food will go to a regional provider. So it's really unprecedented for our industry. The best farm to table fast casuals might get 10 cents, 15 cents on the dollar to local purveyors. But we're able to achieve that because we've invested in a massive amount of technology. So we're lucky to be near MIT, and I happen to be a grad of MIT. Our first food truck was over on the MIT campus. So back in the early days, we rode up on the side of the truck one day. We could use help with this or that, and some programmers came and helped us out. And we've been in a constant state of development since then. We're not that large of a company. I hope someday we look back and we look teeny at this point, where we have a little more than a dozen restaurants. But we have a full team of programmers and that are full-time and work for us. And we do a lot of active development of technologies that allow us to change the menu seamlessly. So if I didn't have those tools, I really wouldn't be able to operate this type of a business. And some of those tools are around connecting us with farms and figuring out how we're going to source. But frankly, the bulk of the tools are around making sure we can gracefully switch menu items internally with consistent quality. And then as importantly, that we can communicate these things smoothly to customers. So making sure that we can change an ingredient last night and then it shows up like in the nutritionals for a customer today. Getting those systems right has been a lot of the work. And I think at this point that tech will scale really well, but it certainly has been, a lot of investment to get to where we are.
Yeah. Well, in a tech stack like that, if you're using it for analysis, even if, do you guys get into weather mapping and seasonal aspects of how to understand how to connect to certain local suppliers?
Well, so the neat thing about what we do is our model is built with the expectation of variability. So I don't even have to get into that. The problem most people have with sourcing is that it's a demand based, right? They want to have a corn salad on their menu from May until September, right? And so, elote street corn salads on the menu from May until. The problem is no farmer has corn for that period, right? So then all the difficulty becomes, where do you get it? How do you stitch together the various sources? How do you keep the quality right? And that's where you have to worry about things like weather. Our model is totally different than that. We say, farmers, what do you have? And if in June they don't have any corn, we're not going to be serving corn on the menu. So our menu really changes with what's available, and that happens very smoothly. So when there's a bumper crop, we take advantage of that. And when there's a poor crop, we don't even serve that. We don't buy early items that are available in small quantities at high prices. We buy the items right in the middle of their abundance. So it lets
Yeah.
us keep food costs down, but it also insulates us from all that, all of those pressures that you have when you're trying to create a consistent demand-based menu.
Yeah, let's talk about growth there in Boston, going from 2, 3 units now up over at 11 units. You're fairly dense there within the Boston near MIT, Cambridge area, and then obviously over in the metro area. Has it been something that you just feel like this is the expansion area? Are you looking to try to continue, and what is the market capable of holding in terms of Clover?
Yeah, this is something I just had a board meeting last week. We spent a lot of time talking about this now, 5 years ago, thinking about how should we be building the company and what should we be focusing on. One of the more important decisions we make is what's that location of that next restaurant. And right now, our feeling is the Boston region, and for us, that's the urban core, but also the suburban area, could support 30 to 40 restaurants. And so that's what we're focused on right now. And so I think as you see the next 20 Clover restaurants, the bulk of them will be here in Boston, building in concentric circles. We have one in the suburbs right now in Burlington, Mass. It's about a half hour outside the city. All the others are in the urban core. And we're excited to sort of see that progression. The one that's in the suburbs right now is doing fantastically. It's really been terrific.
So are all of the restaurants similar to? I'm trying to remember the one that I got to visit, but it was fairly large. Looked like it could have almost been a commissary style. What's the average footprint of a unit now?
Yeah, so we have they range from 1,400 square feet to 2,300 square feet. I think we have a little bit less than that. One we have in the suburbs right now is one of the smaller ones. It's just a little less than 1,500 square feet. But I think in the suburban locations, we're better off with more space. I think people, they're driving there in their car. They want to know they can find a place to sit down. So as we build future restaurants in the suburbs, I think they'll be a little bit larger, closer to 3,000 square feet. We're building one in Newton right now, which is a suburb of Boston. That's 2,700 square feet. And then I think the stores in the urban core are probably going to stay more in the 1,500 to 2,000 square foot space. We find a lot of takeout is happening in the urban stores. The one I'm sitting in right now is in the financial district of Boston, and we probably did 80% takeout today. So this restaurant is I think this one's 1,900 square feet, so it has adequate seating, but it's just and there are times of day where all the seats are filled, but the bulk of the use is takeout.
Interesting. Very cool. Well, it's good to know and learn a little bit about it. I like the concept. I have been, as I said, I've been watching your brand for quite some time and have been intrigued with the model of kind of this on-demand menu, essentially, that is ever changing. And it appears that it's obviously working there in Boston. It's very highly recognized, and your customer base seems to be locked in. I wanted to kind of do a trend rundown with you and your thoughts on a couple of things that we're seeing happening in the space. So let's talk about delivery trends versus pickup. Where do you see kind of the future going there?
I wish I knew it was happening with delivery. I think that's it's a big fog of war over our industry right now, right? And I think one of the things that makes it so hard to understand is there's such a heavy promotional dollar going into that space that I just don't think you get to see it clearly. I mean, there's so many millions of dollars being spent to make delivery happen right now. I don't think an operator like me gets to see what it will really look like once the dust settles. I can hope that delivery becomes a small part of our industry because I think it's going to be a more expensive channel for most of us. It probably has an opportunity to expand the pie a bit, but I think it's probably going to be expensive for most operators. I think as I talk to different people, I get estimates. Some people believe it's not going to be more than 12 or 14% of the industry, and some think it's going to be much higher. So I don't know where it'll come out, but I'm rooting for delivery as a small portion of the total.
Yeah, we're getting feedback from CEOs like you that they're really transitioning a lot of their marketing dollars to pickup or trying to get guests to order online but come and get the product, which changes the dynamic obviously for the cost to the guest and obviously the cost to the operator. That'll be interesting to see. And again, yes, very Very interesting position right now for the market. Let's talk about the technology that's being kind of implemented around alternative proteins. This is everything from plant-based proteins to actual fake meat that's being lab grown. What are your thoughts on those trends?
Interested to watch how it evolves. We have a relationship with Impossible, and we're their launch partner for this region. We have an Impossible meatball sandwich on our menu. We also have an Impossible sausage breakfast sandwich. They've been tremendously successful for us. I think they've brought a lot of people in the door who wouldn't have come in otherwise. I make a lot more money selling a falafel sandwich than I do the Impossible, and it's maybe 8 times better for the planet. But the Impossible sandwich is better than a meat version. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's a stepping stone, and if it can help people, come our way, we're all for it. Lab meat is going to be the next frontier there, and it's going to be interesting to see what evolves when that's available as a commercial product.
Yeah, for sure. All right, ag tech and farming. Since you are working with a lot of local farmers, you're probably seeing some of the latest ag tech being used. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we're going to see a resurgence in the small local farmer coming back?
I think there's just tremendous opportunity with ag tech. We can capture a lot of carbon in our soil if we farm differently. And I think we have the technology. If we stitch it together, we can start making those sort of known methods more accessible to a broader group of people. We're good friends with the folks over at Indigo Ag, and the work that they're doing is really amazing. So I would love to see how that evolves. I think there's a ton of potential there, and I'm excited to see the practices that a small farmer who has a couple acres, who's very well educated and dedicated to regenerative practices or other kinds of progressive practices. For years, they've seen really great results and had some of the tastiest food and some of the healthiest soils. And I'd love to see those practices scale so that they're not hitting, a dozen acres here and a dozen acres there, but instead hitting hundreds and thousands of acres. So I think that's our opportunity there, and I'm excited to see that expand.
Yeah. Ayr, there's been some recent data out on mostly millennial and Gen Z, that have kind of moved into non-traditional meal times, which introduces a lot of these new age snacks. We've had, all these plant-based snack companies that we've had here on the network talking about, kind of the explosion of this specialty food product that's almost in some cases replacing mealtime. What are your thoughts on that for the industry?
Well, it's funny. We used to have a portion of our menu that was labeled sides, and we had some side items, and we recently underwent a change where we now have we totally overhauled that, and it's now a section of the menu called snacks, and and they're much more shareable, and they're much more robust and exciting, and I think we've seen tremendous growth in that area on our menu. I don't know if I can speak to what's happening nationally with us, but here we're seeing a lot of interest in sort of those foods that are in between meals. And also, I think a piece of that we're seeing is the shareability of it.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think is a big factor, especially for the millennial and the Gen Z. But it's also not tying themselves to, hey, I've got to break at whatever and have dinner or lunch or whatever that might be. Last question in terms of our trend tracker that we look at is this massive shift in alternative milks. So every kind of nut and oat milk you can imagine is out there now. How much of that is impacting your business, and do you see this in terms of a consumer demand continuing down the same track?
We're about to launch a whole range of Milky Drinks, so like turmeric lattes, hot chocolate, things like that. None of which have real milk, so all of them are going to be oat milk. I think the products have gotten much, much better, and at this point, those products we've been developing, I couldn't have made something that would taste that great a few years ago, but I think that as we test them with customers, a lot of customers are going to prefer my turmeric latte to one that they could get across the street made with real milk. And it's a turning point, I think, and we're seeing the results in terms of people's buying habits.
Yeah, for sure. Ayr, it's been great having you on the show today. Thanks so much. I can't wait to get to Boston again and try some fresh made Clover food.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you here, and let me know when you're in town.
Absolutely. All right, so for all of you catching us, whether you're over on YouTube or maybe on Spotify listening to this podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube, make sure and ring the bell and subscribe. Give us a feedback loop. We love to hear kind of your input on what you think is going great about the show, or if maybe you have someone that you think should be on Fast Casual Nation. Send us a note to producer@foodabletv.com, or you can also hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you soon right here on Fast Casual Nation.